I've got everything pulled up in your case file situated, so as soon as...
You don't need much from me, do you?
No, everything, yeah, so the way the system works is they've got a schedule, so when people call in or email in, then they go ahead and put them on the schedule with the openings that we have. I think we're pretty full this week. We've been popular.
How many more weeks or days do the people have?
So we were booked, we had 3 weeks scheduled for 6 in person every 15 minutes.
Okay.
So that ends Saturday. We go Saturday until 7. I'm not sure how many openings, and Mike will be able to talk through that as we have left. Looking at the schedule, we're pretty full, I think, through Friday night. So we've done evening appointments, and we've also done 2 weekend appointments.
So it's safe to say that there really is no more openings for people?
So they're going to continue to look at that. So we've got 2 staff members here that are going to continue on for the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure how long that lasts. That'll be up to the auditor to decide how long that extends out.
So depending on the number of requests for meetings
Correct.
that they have, we'll
Yep.
decide that.
And then the other thing for us right now is any corrections that we've made. Sometimes there might be a neighborhood adjustment if we relook at the neighborhood. And so with that said, some of those adjustments still need to go into the system. So we might have an individual that comes in from a neighborhood, we make a change that affects everyone. So getting that information out to everyone before they rebook someone else comes in is a little bit of a challenge just with the information that we have and getting these out to everybody.
As you can well imagine, it's pretty intimidating for the average citizen.
I understand, yeah, and it's a very informal process.
Yeah, and it's pretty confusing. Well, I'm finding even legislators don't even understand this.
I would agree with you.
Whole process.
Which is why we set these up for the informal process and have that. We don't want to have people file a board of revision in January, getting their tax bill, being surprised by a new value. So it's important to us in the county that we do that.
Yeah, and it's, I have no agenda here at all.
Oh, no, you're good.
Other than
Yeah,
just informing the people, so.
Yep, no, you're good. I just, like I said, from a standpoint of having him answer any questions as well,
Yeah.
if you don't mind having, he can,
No.
okay,
I don't
perfect.
I've been in the auditor's office a lot.
It is public service.
Right.
We are open, but most people don't look at their value or their property information until they get their tax bill.
I'm
right?
also guilty of not looking at the details.
So this is the good, and we tell everyone every day, whether you agree with your property value or you don't, you should come in and see us to make sure that you've got everything listed correctly, that you've not made any changes to your property. We check for owner occupancy, and we also check for homestead. So I've had 2 people yesterday that I walked upstairs and got them on homestead, and that's a discount for them. So
That's great, and again, what we are doing with Lobbyists for Citizens is, in order to actually change this whole property tax system, it has to be, we understand, it has to be a groundswell of average citizens, speaking out. So that's what we're doing. We're mobilizing across the state, and with the ultimate goal of elimination of property taxes. It may not happen in our lifetime, but it's, we think property, home ownership is the foundation of our freedom and liberty. It's a way that we transfer our wealth from one generation to the next.
I would agree with that.
So,
And you have to remember one thing, there is the property taxation, and the value does set that, but our job here is to make sure that your value is accurate, according to the Department of Taxation and the rules that they put upon each county to do that.
you see, what people are asking me that I don't know, and they say, well, Brian, how do they determine the actual valuation? So,
and we'll walk through that.
Do you make it available to people as far as if I wanted to find out, what my valuation, how it was calculated?
And we can kind of walk through that too, so we'll go through the steps. A lot of it, and the main thing is the sales. So, and Jude might be able to speak to this as well. What happens is the state of Ohio gets every valid sale, every conveyance form that goes through for the last 3 years. And that is what they use to calculate the difference between the property valuation, or what the value was before. And
Hi, hello, Jude. How are you?
and you can sit over here, Mike, if you want to. I just told him
Oh my
I
gosh, we've got the
Well,
full team.
Jude is a former, he worked in an auditor's office, and so he can talk more of I can go through the details, he's got more of a higher up level. So any questions that I'm not answering properly, please help me out.
So far, I think you're okay.
Yeah,
Is there anything
this is
else?
not, again, I'm not
No, and you're
doing this to
fine.
put anybody under the gun. one of my roles with a group I have, Lobbyists for Citizens, is to educate the citizens of Lake County
Well, that's part of what
many
our role
things.
is, to
So
educate.
this is a very complex
It is, believe me.
subject, and we know that the legislators, many of them don't even understand the property tax
I
calculation.
don't disagree.
So
Yeah.
that's why I've got some, personal things,
Yeah,
not
and we can
huge,
walk, well,
not huge.
I think, yeah, so we can start by kind of pulling up your information. So what we do when someone comes in is we, like I said, pull you up in we have a schedule, since you're kind of sharing everything. So everything's kept here in our schedule. So we have phone hearings, so we're able to call people back as well if they're not able to come in. And so we've got a schedule of folks, and we run through the schedule with who we have staffed to do that. And so we take a case number, put you in the system, and then we come over here, and your information gets pulled up. So it's going to have your prior year value, it's going to have your percentage of increase, it's going to show me kind of what changed, and then if there's any notes, I can put those in the system. So this is the CAMA system. It's where the rates and all the information goes.
What's that called again?
It's called a CAMA system.
CAMA system?
Yep, every.
Computer-aided mass appraisals.
Computer-aided mass appraisal. Okay.
So what happens to a reappraisal is we go out and look at the sales and what is sold. We check pricing, because of course building prices have changed. And so the reason,
Since we're recording, go ahead.
well, what I was going to say is the reason, and I think this is one thing that I would like to get out, is percentages aren't apples to apples. So a lot of folks will come in, they'll look at the sheet, and they'll say, my neighbor went up 20%, you're up 11%. Your neighbor's going to come in and go, why didn't you raise Brian up to 20%? Well, it depends. You might have had something that we took off. Maybe we had you listed for a finished basement, that came off, so your percentage changed. Also, I'm not sure what's, exactly on each one, but these are just references to, they could have told us that they had a vaulted ceiling that we added. So things get added and taken off in a reappraisal, and so that's why you're not going to see those percentages match. And you may see a negative one. Maybe they called in and said their square footage wasn't right, or we had something listed wrong. So part of the process here, we did a mailer, and I can look to see if you sent one
No, I
back.
didn't send it in.
You didn't send it in? And see, that's super helpful because, one, it verifies all the information that we have is correct and that you've agreed to that. But if not, you're gonna have an opportunity to tell us that it's not.
Right.
So those are super helpful. But those do have changes in, help assist in the, I'm tripping over my,
No, I understand.
in the changes in percentages.
And do you look at neighborhoods and say, well, this neighborhood, and this is
Yeah.
Nature Preserve South, that went up overall 30%.
Right.
Just to clarify neighborhood, what your perception of a neighborhood is probably different than the way what we're trying to do is find uniform areas that have the same demographics in the marketplace. So it may not just be limited to
Demographics meaning
similar size.
Similar size,
age,
similar year build,
It's
similar
nothing to do
similar-
with people then.
But it could-
No,
It's-
no, we don't know who lives in what, we have no idea. I don't know that what you look like, I don't know what your neighbors look like, I don't know what you have on the inside of your home, other than the square footage and the information if it was a sale, and I could tell if you had a finished basement. So, and a lot of times, I have neighbors who bring in a list of their neighbors who have finished basements. Everyone would like their neighbors to pay their fair share of the taxes as well. And so.
You got neighbors narking on.
They do. But I remind folks that we don't enter the properties. This is mass appraisal. We're doing this as 110,000 parcels within the county.
Unbelievable.
And a lot of it is based on sales. So everybody has a story, and we give everybody the opportunity to come and be heard. Usually specifically to their property, they will tell us about the neighbors. We learn a lot about people.
When I see
So-
11% on my property, what that tells me though.
So your
I've-
neighborhood-
I've been paying, higher than the other neighbors,
Not
and now
Not
they're
necess-
catching up though.
No, not necessarily.
11% is just the increase from the last time your property is reappraised till now.
So your neighborhood total change is actually at 17%, which is lower than a lot of the
A lot of the
neighborhoods
other-
that
I
we've
understand
seen.
the whole Lake County was a little less than 30%, like
Right,
28.6
so
or something like that.
Your market growth over probably a 3-year period since the last time we did an update has grown 17%, mostly because of the sale activity.
Okay, there was a sale down the street, maybe there was only one sale.
Well, we look at it
and-
over a 3-year period.
Yeah.
Kind of leaning towards the most current, because we're trying to figure out the value as of January 1st of '24.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was a sale, looks like in your neighborhood for
Yes.
a 2023 sale.
About
That
3
was
houses down from me.
445.
That would have been one of the sales that would have contributed to the analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there's a nature preserve north and nature preserve south. What is our neighborhood for nature preserve south? Is it just?
I don't know.
So
truly
it looks like right here.
Oh,
it
so it's
should-
just
it-
basically
yes.
our
Shade,
development
so if
there.
you go a little bit further north.
So, the shading.
The shading
The
tells you
shading on this
neighborhood.
one is gonna show you what that neighborhood
Right.
is.
Got it. Okay.
And sometimes, so when you're in the country, it's a little bit more challenging to do that. You're gonna pick up kind of the increase based on what is your grade, what is your quality of construction. Similar built homes, have they been remodeled? There's all of those things that go into this equation to try to equivalate the value of the property.
One of the limitations in mass appraisal is it works best in uniform environments, but not everything's uniform.
Mhm.
Like in the city of Painesville, for example, you may have houses in city streets that are inconsistently
Right, yeah,
maintained.
maybe you
and-
get a 30-year-old house next to a brand-new building.
Right, a refabbed, but
Yeah,
not
yeah,
something that, has been updated. So the market is a little more challenging there. The most uniform is a condo, to be quite honest with you. Because they're generally built where the condos own the exterior of the building. They're kind of uniform. There may be some differences in square feet, but for the most part, they're fairly uniform when they platted the
So
condo.
you'll basically see a consistent.
Yes, when there's
increase through the-
inconsistency, our approach is uniform across an area, which may be plus or minus depending on your specific property characteristics.
Okay. Couple things, on a personal note. Number one, I just want it recorded because this is going to be a big issue as we move forward at the state level, that I am objecting to paying on unrealized gains. So I know you're probably gonna tell me you can't do anything about that, that's how
Well,
the system
I
works.
think right.
But we're,
Right.
but we.
California has something similar to that. It's the value doesn't get updated until the sale.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're referring
Yeah,
to,
so
realized
we're-
versus recognized, because we're recognizing the market increase, but it's not realized until you sell it.
Yeah, so we'll, again, I'd like to put that on the record, and as we go forward, marching, again, what we're doing, we're going to the state level.
Sure.
So we're educating, people throughout the state of Ohio, so, I object to that.
Yeah,
But
but-
I should be, in my mind, it should be the valuation that I paid for the construction of the home.
Okay.
Okay? The other thing is, I noticed the square footage, and I know that, I printed this out from the record, that my finished basement area at 2,600, well, I noticed that that's not really quite right, it's 2,464. Now, does somebody come in and
Hey, this is Jacob
compare
from
that?
the auditor's office.
So, did you build the home?
Yes.
Just
Do you have
calling to give
blueprints?
an 8 AM phone hearing
Do I
today
have
to discuss your property value?
If I still have them or not.
So we measure from the outside because we don't enter the
Alrighty,
inside of the home, so we do measure from the
I
outside.
have
So what
already
I
taken a
find
look
sometimes
here.
is if you have a vaulted ceiling and
Sorry
we're
to
accounting
keep
for
this
an
one
upper
a
floor,
little bit
which
of
is
a shorter,
why
and
throughout
they
this
can see that we have
process
the
we
recent
double check
sale
all
on
of
the
that
home
while
for
you're here.
about
Mm-hmm.
160,000.
So if you have blueprints or
I
information
have
or
a,
look at the sketch,
I made some
then
corrections
we
here
just
kind of
verify
to
that
the
that's all
dwelling,
listed
where it's kind of
correctly, and
being
that's one of the things that we do,
calculated
which is
correctly
why.
Can I take if I
I
don't
see
have
where the
blueprints, can I
home is
take a
at, kind of
picture of the
where the
basement
site's
and then
kind
give
of
you the
listed in the
measurements of
condition of the
what it
dwelling,
is?
we
It's,
account for everything.
the basement is finished
and where
except
I
for
have
certain
the,
portions, so like
or furnace, a furnace area.
So like a utility space that isn't
Yeah, it's
technically
not
sold,
finished.
Where I'm kind of going and
say
accounting
that
for taking.
three-quarters of it's
just some
finished,
of
but
age
the other
that's on
quarter
the
was
dwelling, so that way
unfinished.
the
Yeah,
depreciation
that sort of thing.
calculations
So
are being
how do
applied
I
correctly here and where
prove to you?
this is kind of
So
being applied
I'm
correctly with the
showing,
long-term
like,
of the
so this
house
is where we
and
keep
less
all the
than
information and that we
this
walk
is
through
only
when someone
being
comes
applied
in.
for
So
2 years,
you
so
or
that
anyone
it's
else that comes to see us, we
accounted
walk
for
through the same
correctly going
process.
forward.
We pull up your information, we pull up your file, we look at the neighborhood
Do you have any
to
questions
see
or
kind of
anything?
percentage, we look around, are you, for some reason, did something get input wrong, which can happen accidentally. We just make sure that everything's
Yeah,
right.
and that's where
And
there was
I
a
had a
factor
woman that
was
came in
being
last
applied to
night,
the house
and
that,
I
mean,
said,
did
do you
see
have
some of these
1,500
pictures
square
from
feet
this recent
finished
sale
basement? She
where,
said, well, no, I only have
the
500.
depreciation
I
of the
pulled up her
house
mailer, and
was
she had
being
written that
applied
she had
correctly, so I
1,500
removed
square
that
feet of
factor.
basement finished,
Went
so,
and did some other
you know,
things to
we
make it
go
come
off
down.
the information that we
It's all
have,
about
not
what-
saying that
or,
that's,
being
but that's where we get the
Yeah, I understand it
information.
again.
The home is per your recent
The average
sale,
citizen
so-
does not understand the implications
It's
of putting
pretty-
1,500 versus 500. Believe it or
Yeah,
not.
so pretty tough.
Well,
Sorry,
and that's, but the
that's-
mailer,
but
you
what
know,
you-
we're,
yeah, I
we're
know what you
trying,
do
we're,
with
we're
that.
trying to get the information out.
Correct.
We send you a flyer to tell us, and if your basement information isn't correct and you did not send back the mailer, which you told me, I can't correct anything. I can't go, Brian doesn't agree with what we have, so the facts on the,
Do you have any
you know,
other questions?
it's
Understand.
public record. Anyone can go out at any point
Alright, sounds
and
good.
view
You
their
have one
property
for us?
and make sure it's correct. And I advise people to do that all the time. Homestead, apply
I've
for
learned a
it.
lesson.
Send back your mailer, Brian, and tell all your friends to do the same.
Okay. So what do I do, how do I prove to you that it's 2464?
Let's see what we have.
You have
I
2,600.
mean, for the basement,
For the finished portion of the basement, you've got 2,600.
Right.
Finished basement area, 2,600. And I'm saying, no, it's really
Can you
24,64.
did you build, yeah, and I mean, I can make a change if,
Well, I just want to prove it to
Well,
you.
let's-
Don't just
yeah,
take
and I
my
tell
word.
folks to bring in pictures. Have you ever been through the board of revision process here?
Yes, I have. a couple
Okay,
years ago.
did you bring in evidence for that?
And what I got was an appraised value of the home. I was really just on the home.
Okay, and did
But
it
I
have
didn't-
pictures? You didn't view everything to make sure you were listed properly?
Yeah, that's
Well,
my
maybe,
fault.
maybe as a suggestion, can you like validate or?
Yeah,
try
so
to
we
see-
can
so
walk
if you
through it. So-
change that, and what would that do to the overall value? It's probably not as much as you think.
Well, I understand, well, Auditor Galloway said, well, Brian, that's probably about $20.
Probably.
No, it's, well,
Well, 20 bucks
in
in
val,
taxes.
there's value and there's taxes. And so,
Well, he
you
said
know,
it wouldn't be
Jacob.
$20 in taxes, and I said, well, Chris, is that gonna go back 18 years?
No,
And I said, why not?
because.
Now, if I was paying 2464, but it's really 2600, how far back would you go?
5 years if you had the ownership over that period, if we believe it was something that was omitted, that we missed.
So you
You
can go
could do
back.
that, but
You can
I-
go
in
back,
this
but
case,
you can't
because
give me
it's-
credit.
well, but in
No.
this case, and what I tell folks is, you know, you were given an opportunity to verify the information and it's public record. So you've been through the process. It's upon the owner to come and tell us if something's listed wrong.
Now, Chris Galloway said that he's got the ability to override that.
And he can override anything that I say.
He's the auditor, he's the one with the name on it.
But I always
We're
tell the
just here to
property
make
owner, let's
recommendations.
say you have a vaulted ceiling and you didn't come in and correct it until 10 years down the road and you want me to go back 10 years. I say, the information has been out there. If you felt like it was overvalued, you should have come and told us sooner, right? So that's why I tell people, that's why we do this informal season. That's why we send the mailers. You have an opportunity to tell us and verify all the information. So those mailers are super important.
1,100 square foot finish.
Well, it definitely will get out. The last thing I have, it says here, I don't know
It's like a
if
rec room.
it
Yeah, they consider
impacts
it
anything,
living
but it
area.
says,
Why?
basement fully
Is that-
finished
I
as an
mean,
in-law suite. That is not true.
And I did not put that note in there, and so I'm not sure where that
For
note came
that
from.
area in the basement then, is that?
Previous, you know,
What you're
someone
concerned
It's a
who,
rec room.
yeah.
Does that impact
The rec room
anything?
has-
It's just
Revalue based on square
basement.
feet, whether it's.
So,
toilets.
what did you believe the finished basement was? Can I take a look at this real quick?
Stove and nothing else.
2,464. All I did was I just measured the dimensions
We'll make that adjustment.
and,
And you're taking interior measurements, we take exterior, just, there would be some discrepancy, maybe not to the degree that you're talking about.
So, and let's just walk through everything so that I've got it.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good.
So I've got you listed as
I
a
don't know
one-story
what you
frame.
have in terms of just
Ranch is how you're
documents, stuff to go
described,
over
built in
before I kinda take a look
2006.
at
Okay.
this, So I kind of have that in my mind
Okay.
when I'm going and looking over.
Okay,
this.
so if there was a remodeling done, an
My
addition,
mother.
upgrade, we
We
would
were
have a
around
remodel
Jackson,
year in
about
there.
50.
Some folks
The
do,
house was
you do
built in
not.
1955.
With the house built
She
2006,
died
it's still
about
fairly
almost 10
in
years
good
ago.
shape. So I'd be
Me and
listed
my
as a
brother
full
were
basement.
survivors.
with central heat and air conditioning.
Special heat, I don't know.
No, central, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's a fuel type of gas, hot air, okay. So I don't have you listed as an attic, and I have your physical condition listed in average condition. I've got you listed as 4 bedrooms, one family room, 3 full baths, and a half bath. Okay. So I corrected this,
Probably not.
I gotcha.
and then you're in average
So I took the
condition,
pictures of
neighborhood
what I
is
think
good.
bad with the house and
square
well,
footage.
first of all, you tell me that houses are.
So the total
judged
square
by
feet,
houses
and
around
remind me, because the system, so is 5,000, and that
My
includes
house
the
isn't
basement.
like everybody else's.
5,283
They may have
square
a good
feet.
driveway, I don't. They might have
Okay, made up
something else
of
that I don't, you know.
the,
That's
I had
including
put
the
a roof
basement
on it this
finish
year 'cause
and
I
the
had to.
upstairs.
The roof was 40 years old. So that's the only improvement I put over.
So when you come in
The other
and
like
tell
taking
us that,
drywall
and so
I gotcha.
the other
So I'm gonna start with
part of this is you are in is a 1 acre home site, and that's what we do for all properties that
List of
have a
what they
dwelling
want.
on them.
Okay.
land for
Now,
abandoned
these
land.
first ones here are.
So if you had additional land
Driveway.
outside of the home
Completion of
site,
the driveway.
that gets valued at either an excess or
Totally
woodland,
shot.
depending on what. Some folks have flooding, and so we take all of that into consideration when they come in. What is the value of that land to the property with any issues that it may have? So again, a good reason for people to come in and talk to us. So, and that
Then we
value
get to
is
I have a deck out back.
84,790. So if I come over
It
here,
was all starting to
I made a change to the
deteriorate.
basement.
30 years ago. It's on its way out.
And so I'm gonna mark this as a
These are the
change
gutters.
in the system. And then I'm gonna go hit validate. So that took it down. You're at a 10% increase, and it's 571,800. Have you
This
had
is
a
the
recent
sidewalks
appraisal? So I
along the-
ask folks
from the-
because
from the
the market
garage
has changed
alongside
and
the
folks
house
have
to
been
the
paying a
front of the
lot for
house.
real estate. There's
I
a
have
lack
like
of
6 or
housing,
7, 8
and so people are paying
cracks
52.
or
I mean,
panels in there.
whatever the number is, that's what they're writing checks for.
So if someone were to buy the house next door to me and they bought it for $1 million,
Yep.
for example, that's going to impact me, right?
3 years from now.
3 years from now.
If you have several homes, I mean, one is going to, I mean, we're gonna look at that and go, are all the
All
homes
these
in
pictures
that
I
community
consider, it's
worth $1 million
it's gonna
bucks?
cost
I
me money
mean,
to
are
fix
the
it.
sales,
People
is
gotta
there
walk
3
the
other
house.
sales down the street that are 600? You know, it's a balancing act of, just because one person's willing to pay twice as much for the home, doesn't mean that everyone else is, but we have to analyze the data
So there's-
coming in on
there's-
those sales
you're
over
looking at
3
it,
years.
It's not a mathematical formula, there's some,
There is a mathematical
huh?
formula. The
But,
formula is
Now,
based
this
on
is
the sale price in comparison
side
to
door
the
going
auditor's
in.
value.
That thing's all.
So if your house sold
sunk
for
down,
$1 million,
Yeah.
and you're at
Another picture you can
571,
see from the side of
we're
it.
technically 57% of the
The
market.
angle of it is.
And then we would look at all other sales in that neighborhood, and on aggregate, how far below the market are we, or how far above the market are we?
So you're looking at a neighborhood as a
Yes.
market
Front door.
Yes.
correct,
Front steps.
and taking
See
all
how-
of those
see how
sales
far
into
those things have
consideration.
sunk
based
down?
on square footage.
Well, that's one of the
These are,
factors,
yeah.
but basically, the
porch.
big.
That's a major factor, would it not
These
be?
are
It would-
repaired,
it would-
washed up, and they're-
Square
those are
footage is
70
more of
years
a
old now.
property by
You know
property.
what I mean? They're-
But for an area,
show their wear
we're
and
gonna look
tear.
at all the sales
Maybe my neighbor's house is
in
better.
that area and look at that ratio to determine what is our current
Air
value
conditioner
compared to
hasn't
what
worked
the
in
market
15,
value
20
is.
years now.
It's the
Central
mass
air is
appraisal
not-
approach.
not working.
It's appraisal improvement.
By comparison, if you were to get an
Okay,
appraisal, you may
that's
have in the
kitchen.
past.
Those are the original
Yeah.
cabinets. and they're not-
They do what is
they're
called
in good
comparative
shape,
analysis,
but
where they're gonna
people,
look at
you
your
know,
property
70-year-old
and
cabinets, they
recent
wanna
sales of
reduce
similar
stone. The floor.
All the
is
fundamental
linoleum.
principles are
Big
the
gash
same
in the
in mass
floor right
appraisal.
there.
We just rely on statistical analysis,
Oh, yeah.
which is that sales
That's my
ratio.
furnace. Yep.
And then it's
Original
like a bell
furnace.
curve. We look at the
69-year-old
stats.
furnace still running.
The average market, we're at 57% on average in
That's
this
what the guy
neighborhood.
came
We
and
try to
changed the
stay
meter the
below,
other day.
because
You
if
know,
we
these
were
things go
at
forever.
the mean
But
or the
I'm surprised you
median,
haven't updated
value,
something by now, you know?
half of the properties would be
Now,
overvalued.
this is.
So statistically, we try to stay somewhere between
Yeah.
90 and
Sagging.
95%
There
of
is.
what the average market value would be.
And I
Does that make
removed that
sense?
note, and it could be that, you know, not sure how that note got in there, but I also did remove that note for you. so that was
Oh,
not
okay.
in the
Some of it's hard to see.
So-
We've had 4 or 5 floods now.
So the
over
question that we
years.
ask,
You know,
and
it hasn't
I
gotten
think
past
probably
maybe as far
upsets
up as
people
some
when I
of
ask
them.
this question
But I didn't
is,
realize
would
till
you
maybe
sell the home
last
today?
year or
If
year
you,
before.
most people are not looking to sell, if you were to sell the home, do you feel that the value that we set would be the value that you would ask?
Now that you can't tell.
Well,
from
I would
the
hope it would be at least what I paid for it. I don't.
It's like that all the way around, wherever the
Supply and
flood
demand
water
in the
is.
market
Right.
that is going to
Right.
impact that.
Right, and we're
So
looking at
I'm
3
just
years of
saying,
sales,
I
so,
would say that I would hope that I would at least be able to get, even though the dollars that I would get now are certainly not anywhere close to the dollars that I paid for the actual house.
That's the
because
attic.
of the inflation.
Now, there's,
right. And
Insulation,
remember,
we
we're
had
in value.
dropped in
We're in
insulation.
making sure that the
70
value that we
million,
set is
so you can
correct.
measure
The
what it's like.
taxes are
It's
assessed
just
by
flat.
all of the
It's
levies
not
and all the
really
things
what
that
it's
get voted
supposed
in. And we, as a group,
I know you have nothing to do with that.
can't control that.
I'm well
But what I
aware of that.
can do is make sure that you're receiving your owner occupancy and that the value and the corrections are all good. And you, it looks like, are on the homestead and
And
the owner
then plus,
occupancy.
yes, the floor
And
tiles.
so I
I
think,
shouldn't
you
take
know,
pictures of the floor
you are
tiles.
sharing this with
The
other
roofs are
individuals,
all
so
over
making
the
sure that if they're
place.
eligible for that,
Floodwater
that's
then.
huge. It does help
So
them.
that's another-
And at the legislative
I
state
gotcha.
level, if you can, you know, rally for that to be
Could you-
increased,
Could
that
you
helps
tell me on the
everyone
homestead
too.
exemption, I
Kinda
know
see
that
what changes
I was
need to be made.
grandfathered in because
So
of
take
the
a look, see
time
what's going
period
on in
that
the
I,
neighborhood, see where.
which is not
Some of
subject
this is
to
coming
any
from just like, kind of
income
get a better idea of what's going
verification.
on.
Right.
That is not true now, right?
That
You
is
can
correct.
speak to
Because
that.
now it's income and age. I think you must have gotten on, I think it was during the
It's
strict
jumping from
administration.
105 to
That they opened it up
167.
right
Quite some time ago, yes.
Historically, it always had to do income-based.
And what is the income level right now that
I don't-
max?
Do you remember, Mike, is it
36,800.
36,800?
So
And that's
annual
without, that's
income-
without
annual
social
income.
security.
If
So
you make more than 36.8, you're not eligible for.
correct,
Correct.
but that's without social security, and I think that's
Right,
where
so-
people get confused. So I tell people, make sure that you're not including that.
Right.
And
So
call
your
and ask if
investments or
you've
your pensions,
got a
generally, unless
question.
you're employed somewhere, generally if you're working somewhere and you're still collecting.
36.8,
It's
excellent.
line 3 of your state income tax return.
Line 3, okay. Line 3 of the state income tax, okay. And as far as this owner occupancy, 2.5%?
Yeah. You're entitled to that if that's your primary residence.
If your
You're
primary
receiving that.
residence.
Is in Ohio.
In Ohio.
One, I mean, if you have multiple residents, like.
You don't get them for all the
No,
residents.
it's just your primary.
Your primary residence.
Yeah, that's a.
And that is eligible regardless of income?
Correct. That's,
Okay, so-
and you also get what is called, what originally was called rollback, now it's non-business tax credit. It used to be 10%, now it's a little bit less than that. So it's probably a 90-some% discount or credit.
Oh, those are the two rollbacks. So you got the
Yes,
homestead
yep.
exemption, you got two rollbacks, the 10%, basically 10%,
and
and
the
the
2.5%.
2.5%.
Yeah. Rollback came around in the 70s when they first enacted the personal income tax in Ohio. And at the same time, they gave property tax relief of 10% for any residential or agricultural property. Actually, it was all property back then.
You know, what is surprising to me is when I talk to the average citizen about the property tax, number one, if they've got it, many people don't even see their property tax bill.
Right,
One,
'cause
if
it
it's,
may-
if it's
it's
lumped in,
escrow.
with their, they don't see it. So I always remind them, I said, well, it's gotta be online, or you should ask your bank, or you should know, because my study has shown that there are about 36 different tax levies that were in, in Lake County that we're, paying for, depending on your tax district. So, people really need to, they should not be surprised, but many of them
We agree.
do not know.
No, they don't. It
One
just
thing to
changes.
consider with your group moving forward, you might want to think about the demands on local government that are usually passed down from the feds and the state. The
Unfunded mandates, there's no question.
Absolutely.
Well, I do find that as I talk to legislators and/or auditors, and the state is making conscious decisions to actually push things to the local level.
Yes, they do, generally. Most of the services are done locally under the administration of the state or federal government programs that are involved. Used to be, years ago, they used to do revenue sharing back to the local levels. They've eliminated now that from the state in particular. The state used to take a portion of their personal income tax and sales tax, and they would push that down every year back to the locals based on a
I
formula.
gotcha.
Well, they've eliminated that, so that puts more pressure on local government. One of your largest users of local government taxes is schools.
Yeah,
And
see,
that's a
I
big
recognize
thing.
60, in my school district, well, I'm paying 65% of
Yes,
my property
that's about
taxes.
common.
So it's anywhere from 60 to 70%, so we use 65, so that
Yeah.
people understand what they're voting for, and we say if you continue to fund these, you're going, I made the statement years ago, when I saw that I had a 40% increase in my property taxes, I said, if we continue with these ever increasing property taxes, we're gonna fund, seniors are going to be priced out of their home.
And we're
that's not-
hearing that, particularly on a fixed income, where
Yeah.
people are living off of their small pension and social security.
Right.
Can they keep up? I know that in Lake County, and where I'm from, in Erie County, we have waterfront. And people who have lived on the waterfront for years don't want to give up their asset.
Yeah.
But they can't keep up with the tax demand, because those values accelerate faster than off the water.
Yeah.
And it's a tough position for them to be in.
Yeah, well, in fact, we've got some friends that are living on the lake right now, they got an 84% increase
Yeah.
in the property values.
Yes.
So,
Because of the sales.
and with the schools at the 20 mil floor,
They're gonna get most of that if they're at the 20 mil floor.
that's
Or
$210
at least on that
per 100,000.
65%.
Yeah, so,
I just want to correct myself real quick, the threshold for the 24 homestead is 38.6, I switched the two.
I'm sorry,
It's
you're-
38,600.
38.6?
Yeah, I said 36.8 at first.
Yeah, 38.6, okay, well, I appreciate that. Again, what I will do, I thank you so much for your time.
Yes, no, and like I said,
allowing us to
yep.
record for the people.
So what I did, and just so that you can finish, we can finish this up, is that change is over here on the values, so it's 10.13. So what, here on our tracking sheet, how we keep track is we come in, you had a hearing scheduled, I took your case, and down here, I put in that you have a decrease in value based on the information that you provided. And they're gonna send letters. Mike is gonna help us out with sending letters to you in the next couple of weeks, and anyone else that has that, so you get a letter stating that new value. And that will be in the system. And like I said, we're gonna continue to work through this and make sure that we relook at the neighborhoods and check the information. But if you have a change, or you wanna go out and view the information, it's on the website. And we would like people to do that. and
Thank
make
you
sure
very much,
it's
you've both
corrected.
been
So,
very kind, thank you so much.
thank you.
Good luck
Nope, I
this
wanted to
year.
make sure we were all available to answer any questions that you had from Homestead to giving you the full picture. Because you're right, a lot of folks don't know all the information out there. So Brian, it was a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Good luck to
Thank
you.
you, Scott.
And
Nice to meet you, Brian. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
See you again.
Thank you.